Hello, thank you for joining us. My name is Elmer Moore, and I'm the project team lead for Scale Up Milwaukee, and we're presenting another Google Hangout. This week, our guests include a Scalerator faculty member and one of our Scalerator participants, and I'm going to have them introduce themselves. Kevin, why don't you go first?
Excellent. Well, thanks for hosting, Elmer. My name is Kevin Mulcahy, like Father Mulcahy on MASH. No relation for those of you that are big 70s fans. And I teach entrepreneurship on the MBA program at Babson College on the outskirts of Boston, and on the executive education session, and also travel the world to different Scalerator, scale-up, startup programs like yourselves to help you guys get to the fundamentals of the challenges in growing your business, because we're all about growth, growth, growth.
Chip, why don't you go next?
My name is Chip Doering. I went to Babson College, and I'm currently the president of Doering Fleet Management in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, a business we started 26 years ago. In those 26 years, we've grown every year except one where we were flat in, I believe, 2010. Our growth is accelerating. We run what we consider a service business. Some people might consider it a financial business or an automobile business, but from our perspective, it's a service business.
Fantastic. Adam?
To round out the Babson tripod, my name is Adam Berger. I'm the Vice President of Doering Leasing and one of the partners. I've been at Doering for 13 years, and many of those years were serious growth years. For us, relocation years, doubling and tripling a staff. So we've had a good run the last several years.
Great, thank you. So, Kevin, I'm going to invite you to ask the first question of these guys, but I do want to make sure that we hear from them how this came to be and why growth is such an important factor for them.
Excellent. So, as the first question, let's get to the heart of growth. Growth can't happen without people. And as you grow, the people challenges start to reveal themselves differently. What has been the key people challenge that has been related to your growth?
I would argue, I'll take that one first. I would argue we have a couple. There's two layers of problems, if you'd like to call them that. The first is we're taking people who were built for a smaller company at a smaller level, and we're trying to scale them all up and push more throughput through each person, and some are enthusiastic about that and some are not. So we're adding new staff and layering people into the system to allow for that growth in the future. The second is, quite honestly, just staffing the growth in general and finding talent that will both drive it and service it. In addition to taking our existing staff and helping drive them and keep them in phase with that growth, if you will.
And I'll second that. My initial thought with what Adam was saying is exactly, I'll just go a little more in depth. We feel like every 9 months, every 10 months, we almost feel like we're starting a new company because of the needs in terms of each department and the expectations that either our clients have, because we're getting larger, more sophisticated clients. We're doing a lot more volume, and our expectations keep growing. Unfortunately, a lot of times the people don't grow as quickly as our needs and expectations. So there's a lot of reshuffling, and we really have to do a good job of understanding who's with us and reassigning people. And it's great, and it's really fun, and it's a challenge. When we started the business, we didn't think so much. I didn't personally think so much people-oriented. It was more about processes. But like you stated, it really is the people, and having the people all work together in the right culture, I think, is just really critical.
Right. And you mentioned culture. I know Chip outlined staffing availability and then went on to make the distinction between the availability of skills. But Chip, you brought it to the next level of the growth culture. What is it, or how do you screen for culture after availability and skills are evident, what is it that you look for, and how do you convey or screen for culture, and what role does culture play in your growth story?
Gosh, if I believe if we could answer that in 1 second, we'd be a genius and we could sell it. uh, we came across culture by accident. It was a true empathy for our clients and working hard. One of the ways I've understood our culture is we're very impatient people. When things need to be done, everybody shows up at our door and knocks to get things done. And because it's all in relation to trying to help our clients. That's the way I was, a very impatient person. That's the way Adam is, even more impatient, which is great. But these are the types of things that just for us has come naturally. As we get more people, it becomes harder because not everybody has the thoughts that we do or the core of it. So we're trying to do all that. People are very, very hard to understand until you've worked with them for a while, and we're doing the absolute best we can to get to know people quickly and understand what makes them tick. But boy, is it hard. And if we had the answer, I think we'd be geniuses.
So, you know, what you just said, Chip, reminds me of one of our former Scalerator participants who talked about creating a culture in her company where people knew that they can't walk to the waterfront. Because if they had enough time to be walking, then they weren't busy enough, and they weren't aggressive enough, and assertive enough to be invigorated.
Kind of an echo here. I think it's from Adams. I just want to mention that.
Say that again?
We're getting a bad echo.
Oh, I'm sorry. Then I will let Kevin continue.
All right.
Sorry, so you were extending from, there was a little bit of an echo on the line there, but you were talking about, and I think that was from Chip when you can mute there. Can you really put that question out again? We had a lot of feedback on that question, sorry.
Yes, so very quickly, I was just mentioning one of the former Scalerator participants talked about looking or making sure that her employees never walked to the water fountain, that they always were running to the water fountain, because the idea that they'd have enough time and leisure to walk to get water, walk to the bathroom, suggested that they didn't operate with the sense of urgency that was appropriate for their growth. And I was reminded of that when I listened to Chip and the impatience that you describe in yourself and Adam. So that's what I was mentioning.
Great. And this is one of the big challenges for any growth company, is to get to what are those 3 or 4 values that define how the company wants to grow, right? And it was mentioned there that you can come across those accidentally, or you can think about them explicitly. And if one of those values is we move with haste, then you have to hire for people that have a drive and a sense of haste and understand that when they come on board. And this is not a role for people who need to think today, decide tomorrow, and to lead with that culture and emphasize that culture. And I'll say also even program for that culture. Other companies may have a culture of, look, we move, we evaluate, and we check and double check, ready, aim, fire. And that's a very different culture. And that's a culture that says, look, we don't have, we're high resource investment, and we can't waste when we fire, so we're going to take extra care. So I think the onus here is, number one, to be able to actually, and can you actually define what the 3 cultural values or driving values of your firm are, and what is the priority order of those? And are you actually acting consistently and hiring consistently and motivating and compensating people consistently for reflecting those values and those cultures in how you operate your firm? And they're generally quite different across firms. Even though 2 firms may be in exactly the same business, they're often driven by the driving personality and preferences and just of the leader. So if both of you guys want to react to that. What do you think are your three driving values? And essentially, where did they come from and why do they matter? Would be the essence of, there's a lot of paths to growth, but fundamentally, that's the road that which the leader has to steer. So what say you guys?
I'll let Adam take that first.
Yeah, to lead that off, I want to take one quick step back, Kevin, and simply say it appears to me through the years of growth and the periods of accelerated growth and decelerated growth we've had that growing a culture is a stair step. There are periods of very steep growth where it has felt very much like culture was important, but we couldn't give it much attention. We were worrying about competence and throughput and just raw skills. Now we are trying to focus more on culture as we scale and as personalities and teams and independence and processes and procedures have become more formal and more explicit. And we're really trying to double down in that regard again, but it appears to me there's a sine wave where you ebb and flow from the focus on values and and then you flow to the value of just sheer competence, keeping up and delivering the value that we actually provide to our clients in addition to our internal values. But to your question about what are three sort of hallmark values, one is we say yes, and I think it's been critical to our success. Chip bred that into this company. It's everybody understands we say yes to our clients, and they call. It may be 5 o'clock on a Friday afternoon. We say yes. Whatever it is, we hire people, and we're looking for people that have that positive attitude. They can handle what may be called a high maintenance customer, but that customer may not be. They just may have unique needs that are really important to them. Maybe their reporting needs, maybe their financial needs, maybe their cash flow or communication needs. Whatever their needs are, we're empathetic, to echo Chip's thought. And I think that is probably our second value. We really do empathize with our clients and our employees and try to understand who they are, what they need, and why they need it. And instead of viewing it as, boy, they just took 30 minutes away from my family, it's we can really do right by our clients, score some points, and solidify this relationship for the long term. I would say those two are very strong mainstays, and I'll struggle with the third, but if I think of it, I'll let you know.
Okay.
Adam, the two, we work together, so he came up with two of mine on my list. I will add the third one that's both a positive and a negative. What I believe, and what I've learned about myself and a company, is when you're faced with a decision and you have 1, 2, or 3 choices, I feel like every choice, and I've had this on my mind for the last couple months, every choice we make, we're going to succeed. I mean, I think almost whatever choice a banker gives me or what somebody else gives me, I feel like we can dive in and make it work. What we're trying to do as we grow and scale up now is take these 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 choices or whatever they are in whatever situation, whether it's personnel, financial, or marketing or anything. And I think what we're trying to do is make the right choice now. And I think what we used to do is rush into something, make the right decision, what seemed right, say yes, solve it. But that didn't work very well for systems and scaling up because we have so many different systems like custom billing for different clients. We just say yes and do it. Now we end up with all different kinds of billing that goes out at the end of every month. So those types of things are incorporate everything Adam said and that I said. We say yes, we have empathy, and we know whatever we do will be right. But now we're actually trying to put all this together and create something so we can scale up and do this, multiply it by 5, 10, or 15 in the next few years.
Great, and I really
Kevin,
yeah.
there's a thought. Both Chip and I were educated in this. I'm sure you've heard it in the halls all the time if you don't preach it yourself. But we have that thought that our clients have a better use of their time, and I think it falls under the heading of empathy. But that concept of opportunity cost. What value do we add to give them the free time to do something that is incrementally more valuable, more important, for whatever reason is. Maybe it's their free time, maybe it's their business time, whatever it is, their time is valuable, we respect that and try to add value. we're strong on that. There's a good book called Positively Outrageous Service that we literally give to our recent staff as they come on board and say, please read this. And the book says, wow people. Don't just satisfy them. We're so accustomed to being content as American buyers in our business and personal lives. It just says wow people, and you'll solidify those relationships. They'll stay sticky for decades, not months, and they'll be loyal relationships, not just relationships of convenience.
Right. Well, I think we've gotten at the essence of one of the secret ingredients, and I'll say it's not so secret because we're after exposing it here on this hangout, is culture really matters to growth. And I really liked how you described it as stair step, that there's times for just gung-ho, but there's also times for stepping back and making sure that you have rationalized and get everybody digested on where you all are together. Because when everybody is on the same page and is rowing in the same direction, so to speak, then that really is the rocket fuel for growth. And culture has to be paid attention to and actually has to be programmed, meaning there are sometimes events that you do, not just to get everybody together for the picnic, but to look at one of your 2 or 3 top values and go, when we do have some downtime, when we are programming some events for our employees, how can we make sure that those events reflect our culture? There's always an opportunity to state the message of culture, to walk the talk on culture, talk the talk on culture, and then I'll leave people with this final thought as we may be on a time schedule here. Culture often is a function of what the behaviors that you aspire to, the behaviors that you role model and exhibit, but most importantly, it's a function of the worst behaviors that you tolerate in your organizations and what the organization does when people aren't living up to that culture. And really, your culture is a function of, frankly, the worst behavior you tolerate as much as the best behaviors that you aspire people to. So if we have time, we can talk about that bottom parameter of how do you keep the bottom net up, the safety net up on culture, and frankly, what are some of the most difficult decisions where you have to basically address the fact that somebody isn't fitting the culture?
I'll let Adam go again.
We struggle with this issue, and we have over the years, and we're inherently loving, loyal people with families and hearts and empathy for our clients and our employees and everybody in this world. We struggle with it as we're evolving and some people aren't evolving, I guess is the best way I can phrase it. And it's been a struggle. Effectively, the way it has played out, and I think it has played out in a good way, in a healthy way, is we bust at the seams. We bust at the seams in our office space, and we grow our office space. We bust at the seams in the pressure and the workload we put on somebody. Then we have the means, the justification, and the profitability to bring in a new administrative person. We've worked with it in that regard. And in some cases, there have been some people who have been replaced because they didn't meet the needs of the job as it was redefined and as the job evolved. I think that's important. There's a really sweet balance, I think, between high expectations and loyalty to your employees who have put in time and making sure that everybody is pulling their weight, adding value, and contributing to the bottom line, because to your point, Kevin, there is a weakest link theory, and people see that and they perceive it, and it can and does drain energy from that culture internally if you allow it to foster.
Yeah, and I think one of the ways that you can reflect culture is if folks can't keep up with growth, it doesn't mean that it's unkind to graduate them on. But I heard recently from IBM who is dealing with a cultural transformation and a cultural pivot. And what they have basically done is the folks that they have regarded as no longer able to keep up with the growth trajectory of the firm or the new pivot of the firm, either by their own realization or by the company's realization, they've created a special job database and they have opened up those people to the IBM ecosystem and are doing their best to make sure that folks who can't, that for whom the continued growth culture of the company is no longer appropriate, are well placed and frankly well taken care of elsewhere and aren't just cut out in a mercenary way. So I'm just wondering if have you guys thought about, for the folks that can't keep up, what is it that you have done to, I'll call it, be kind and to not be mercenary and to do no harm, and that's how have you emphasized that part of your culture?
Yeah, that's easy to answer. We're not IBM, and we could theoretically, one of our original cultures is we also have empathy for the people we work with, just as we do with our clients. It's always been our culture. So as you grow past a person or a position, you know, that empathy that we have for our clients, we also have for our people, and we don't and haven't in the past turned over a lot of people, so it's extremely difficult. To answer your questions, we've held them on too long, and as much as we'd like to hold on 15 people, it wouldn't be a good business decision. So we're starting, as we're trying to grow faster, start to make some of the harder choices, but we have not done it well, and we've ended up with, you know, it slows us down, and we're trying to fix that.
Great.
Almost every day, every year, we're trying to fix that.
I think that it was a trick question to try to get you to misstep, but you totally stepped up to that, and you really brought it back to the core value of empathy, and that really is great to hear you say that, because when a company has a value, it's not just for customers. The value has to pervade in all things that you do. It's how you treat customers, and it's how you treat employees. So tremendous kudos to you for just recognizing that. And just as a general comment to all that are listening, I have never heard anyone in all my years of dealing with scale-ups say that, no, we let people go at just the right rate or too early. 99 out of 100 leaders of growth companies always come to the realization that we should have taken action earlier. So it's never a perfect step, but as long as you feel like that gap of we're taking action earlier this year than we did last year, as long as you're moving to close the gap between the time you first realized that you needed to take action and the challenge and the difficulty of taking action, as long as that gap is closing over time, then you're becoming certainly a more proficient and more effective leader of a growth-oriented company. But you can never, it's like timing the stock market, you can never time it perfectly. You just need to reduce that time of instinct to action. And that's one of the hardest personal growth elements of any leader at the helm of a fast-growing company.
Yep, that's in every part of life too, not just particularly one employee in one position. You can reflect that with any other decision you make in life. So it's a good one to live by.
Right. So, and I think that's just going back to when you're helm of a growth company, it's just making sure that you take a little time to have a little reflection time, because the frenzy, as the stair step approach, in that frenzy. Wondering if you guys, where is it that you guys take a little downtime to have that quiet moment of reflection to recalibrate yourselves for that next stair step of your own growth trajectory?
I'll let Adam do it. Gosh, it's very hard, but Adam can answer.
I think it's done in so many traditional ways. We're in an auto industry. Sometimes it's just that 20-minute drive to home or downtown or to a meeting that is a good time to turn the radio up and just clear your mind and have some fun. I think the better times are the times, whether it's a golf course or whatever hobby or avocation we have. Mine happens to be being out on a boat. Whatever it is that clears your mind, your heart rate sinks, and in many cases it's vacation. Chip and I are both terrible at taking protracted vacations. We take couple-day vacations because we want to get back to work. But those times away give good perspective, for sure, and you come back with a new priority because you've removed yourself from the forest and you can see the trees from a reasonable perspective. Those are the best times, I would say, is when you can really get away for half a day to 5 days and just back away from it, disconnect, put the phone down, generally speaking, and enjoy the fruits of the hard work and think about what your real big priorities are.
Yeah, I think that's a great message for all listeners is growth is it's almost like the trajectory of drawing an arrow on a bow. Sometimes you have to pull back a little bit and just aim and pause and stop, and then to let go again and hit the target. And it's a great final reminder on this call here to just whatever frenzied stage of growth that you're in, you've got to find the discipline to take a little time to pause. And I really love your analogy of clear the mind, still the mind, and just refocus. And that pausing is as much a critical ingredient of growth as the energy and the frenzy to actually keep moving forward. So that's a great final point there, Chip.
Great. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in today. Unfortunately, we had a few technical difficulties on mine and Elmer's end, but thank you so much for joining us, and we hope that you had as much fun talking about this as we have.